Welcome back to the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Ray Guo. We'll continue our conversation with Mr. Peter Lai, who is a leading English teacher here in Taiwan and now also branching into China and also Vietnam. Peter, you mentioned about the difficulties of penetrating the Chinese market, in terms of both branching the market share and also in terms of teaching responsibilities. Can you then compare the students that you have received on the mainland as well as those in Taiwan in terms of their English performance, their aptitude, and also their attitude towards learning the language?
All right, so their attitudes actually are quite different because for some time China was poverty-stricken.
Of course.
So it was not until, let's say, 1978 that they began to adopt the open policy. So I got a chance to, go to China over there. I stayed in Beijing, and much to my surprise, those people that I met were very eager to learn English.
That was back in the early 80s.
Right. Okay. And I asked them the reason why they wanted to learn English. They simply just told me that if you have a good command of English, you could find a job very easily at a hotel where you could serve as a page boy or something.
Okay.
Being a page boy at that time, the
was not a bad job.
Right. Even better than, a professor. Definitely. So even today, they are much richer than before. They're still eager to learn English because those, companies from, let's say, overseas, one after another,
establishing presence on the mainland.
So that's why they can find good jobs over there, decent pay, definitely. So that's why English learning has become the norm over there. Whereas here in Taiwan, we used to be very eager to learn English because
very motivated.
Right, highly motivated. But it seems that it's no longer the case at all. No. I don't know the reason why, but I do believe this has to do with our teaching methodology.
Okay.
Because for some time, we pay very close attention to grammar teaching. But nowadays, we just want students to learn to speak English instead of, writing very beautifully. And now this has to do with the poor performance of our students in terms of the TOEFL, the test of English as a foreign language. So that's why, we're, way back, just backward actually, not as good as before.
And also the fact is that, you look at the Chinese market, like you said, a lot of the Fortune 500 companies are now in China and certainly offer the opportunity, the chances for the younger generations to be more upwardly mobile, at least economically, if they obtain the English as a second language. But certainly in Taiwan, of course, over the last 20 years, because of political difficulties with China, Taiwan has been somewhat, isolated. So we don't really get that much of an international exposure. And then certainly that has suffered, in terms of the spread of English as a commonly used medium for communication. And how do you think the relationship, the situations between the two sides will change, with the improvement of, cross-strait relations, improvement of ties between China and Taiwan?
Yeah, it's inevitable that we're going to stay closer, to China because in terms of economy, we want to, get more cooperation directly from those mainlanders. This is something unavoidable. So that's why once, we cooperate with them, now here may come a very big problem. Those mainlanders may come to Taiwan to seek jobs over here in Taiwan.
Exactly.
I know, just, recently that the government is going to allow those students, from China to come to Taiwan to study over here.
Exactly.
And those students who once stay here in Taiwan, then,
they may not want to go back.
Right. So that's why our job market is going to be in a shrunk.
Yes.
So in this case, students here in Taiwan, will have, let's say, will lose the edge. So that's why students here in Taiwan should be encouraged to keep on learning English. So that's why here students should be, let's say, highly motivated to keep on going. Never be afraid of learning English.
I see a lot of the arguments, like you said, Peter, in terms of, if we open up Taiwan's market, to Chinese students, the future prospects of jobs for, younger generations here in Taiwan will be that much dimmer because of the influx of Chinese students. But also, on the other hand, there are arguments made saying that if Taiwan doesn't become more international, more open door in terms of welcoming the best and the brightest from all over the world, especially from China, then we may lose our overall competitive edge as the world becomes more globalized, more integrated. And whichever the argument, they also emphasize the point that you raised earlier. We need to have students, especially younger generations here in Taiwan, have a more international perspective. Learning English is only a part of it. It's not the total package. How would you, Peter, based on your 30 years of teaching English, how would you recommend in terms of delivering a total package for the younger generation to become international citizens who masters 1 or 2 or 3 languages, but also at the same time have an international, comprehensive perspective on developments around the world?
All right. First of all, they should learn to have some skills so that they can survive in this competitive society. I do not mean the necessity of learning English.
No.
So they should specialize in the fields they are studying at college before they graduate. Once they graduate, they will be able to find the jobs they can work for, or they can, let's say, specialize in. And then once they can start earning money, of course, they can travel around.
Yeah.
They can also buy, they can afford to buy some notebooks or, laptop computers. And then by surfing the net, instead of, playing video games, if they can learn something educational or informative, definitely, naturally, they will be, shaped in such a way as to move on to learn English. And they gradually will know that, the necessity of a good command of English is very important. Take Singapore. This is what we call a bullet-sized country. And yet, it's internationally a giant. Not only in terms of English, but in terms of economy. So that country is a role model for almost any other country throughout the whole world.
Even when you ride a taxi in Singapore, you can always ask Uncle, to take you wherever you go in English, and he will respond in English as well.
Right. And also I have to point out that students here do not have to be very much concerned about their pronunciation. English is meant to be, used so that you can, communicate with others. If they understand what you're talking about, fine, no problem. If you, speak, let's say, with a very heavy Japanese accent, for example, Mr. Would do you tell me, the birthday always is? Thank you very much. Fine, no problem at all. So do not, feel shy when it comes to speaking English.
And also the fact is, since President Ma Ying-jeou took over back in May of 2008, making Taiwan more international has been a top government priority. And however, as an ordinary observer of the situation, I don't think we're doing nearly enough. But I understand that your institutes around the island do a lot of activities to promote the use of English as a medium of communication. What are some of the activities that you promote?
Well, actually, they are not unlike those activities used or adopted by other language centers.
For example?
One thing that we pay very close attention to is the spelling bee game. The spelling bee game is quite popular in the United States. And we do exactly the same thing. Because through this kind of game, students can learn to memorize or remember words. Later on, these words, can help them, really a lot, with their understanding of, reading or writing and things like that. Also, occasionally, we encourage our teachers over here to do what they call the show and tell through some flashcards and things like that. But one thing that makes us a little bit different from the strategies adopted by other language institutes is that we occasionally will ask students to go over the school books or the textbooks that they are being taught or they are using in their specific schools, because by so doing, students can do well on their tests. Unfortunately, sadly, our society still is what they call the examination-oriented. If they can score very high, if they can pass the tests, then the parents, will have confidence in us.
Right. And but Peter, also, one criticism that you often hear for people, for their lack of ability to communicate English is that we don't have the overall environment. We're not like Singapore, for example. If you go to a store, you speak English, then the clerk can respond to you. You get into a taxi, it's the same thing. But we don't have that overall support system.
It's not a problem at all, Raymond, because you speak very good English.
Well, thank you.
I believe you used the same strategy
Yes.
as I did long
Hard
time
work,
ago.
yes.
Learn to talk to ourselves.
Exactly, speaking out loud.
Definitely. So the environment can be built on your own. For example, if you just go out, if you just, you're waiting for the bus to come, staying over there, and then you happen to hear some people talk about something, let's say probably personal or something, then you can actually translate what they are doing, what they are saying.
Exactly.
And this is a good way. Also, try to describe the situation. For example, we are now in this studio,
Yes.
and then we can see three persons over there. They are,
Yes.
doing the videotaping or
Yes.
things like that. You can
handling
use
the
the
camera.
words that you are familiar with, regardless of how good your grammar is.
It is. Those are very, very practical techniques that we just learned from Peter. And we can see that Peter is, very personable, but also at the same time very demanding as a teacher.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back to Taiwan Outlook, and we'll continue our conversation with Mr. Peter Lai.